Nike and Adidas are two of the biggest brands in football and make some incredible boots and balls. But what were the first football products they ever made, and were they any good? Well, today, I'm going to find out.
I've bought Nike and Adidas's earliest boots, balls and goalie gloves. I'll be putting them through multiple different tests and seeing how they compare to the most modern products that each brand has made. This is going to be a fun one.
Now, before we get into testing these products, I need to give you a quick history lesson. First up, Adidas, founded in 1949, sponsors Lionel Messi and created iconic boots like the Adidas Predator, whereas Nike didn't come into football till the 1970s. They sponsored Cristiano Ronaldo and they built a brand on speed and innovation. Right, that's history lesson over. Now it's time to head to the pitch and test these products out.
Now first up, we're going to take a look at Adidas and see what their early football products look like. I'll be putting these in challenges head to head with their most modern stuff. And a quick disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by either brand.
Right, first up we're going to take a look at Adidas's football boots, their old ones and their new ones, and see how much difference there really is. First up, we've got Adidas's most modern pair of boots. Let's take a look what you get. These look absolutely beautiful, to be fair. Let's see how this compares to their first ever boots they made.
So let's just pause it there quickly. Now, as Adidas has been about since 1949, getting information on their early boots wasn't easy, and it was hard to narrow it down to an exact pair, let alone actually finding a pair for sale. But I did buy the oldest pair I could find, which are thought to be from the 1960s. So they're a perfect example of Adidas's old football boots from over 50 years ago.
Ignore the dodgy box, I had to get these second hand, of course. Boom. Mate, just look at these Adidas's boots from like the 1960s. They got proper leather insoles. Oh, they're actually really solid. This is going to be a fun test to see how much difference it makes on the pitch.
So before we check out the footballs and do some tests with the gear all together, I want to do a comparison of the football boots on 3 different categories. First up is comfort. And the modern boots were really nice. They had a lot of padding and support, 8 out of 10. But what about our old pair?
I've got a feeling this is going to be a huge difference here.
So to be honest, these are just very uncomfortable.
These are like a 3 out of 10. I'm not sure if I could play a full match in these.
So not great on the comfort test. But what's the difference in weight?
Right, so next up is the weight test of the boots. Now, obviously I'm expecting the old ones to be quite a bit heavier, and just off hands they feel a bit heavier, but I've got the scales here. First up, the modern boots. 276 grams. Now the old boots, 363 grams. That's almost 100 grams heavier, so I think we know which pair wins the weight test.
Now our final test comparing the boots was speed. Are you faster with newer, more modern boots? Well, let's find out. So it turns out our newer boots do actually make you faster, and this test right here is a clear indication of how football boot innovation has increased performance on the pitch. Now before we take a look at Adidas's earliest footballs, what are their old goalie gloves like?
Right, now we're going to take a look at the goalie gloves, and I'm going to be honest, it's hard to know what Adidas's first ever goalie glove is. I did a lot of research and couldn't really get a definitive answer, so I basically just bought the oldest pair I could find and the newest pair I could find, and I'm going to compare them and see what the difference is. Mate, these are unbelievable.
So Adidas's new gloves were really cool. They look good and had a lot of padding. But what were their old pair like? So the old pair clearly just doesn't have as much structure. The design is more basic and the grip was nowhere near as good. But now let's test out Adidas's earliest football and compare it to their modern day ball.
Their newest football looks like this. It comes in this pretty cool box, Champions League ball. Let's take a look what you get. Oh, and boom. This thing is actually really nice. But how does this compare to the first football they made?
So pause it there. Once again, getting an exact answer on Adidas's first ever football was tricky, but it's well reported that the ball I'm about to show you was one of their earliest, and it was released in 1970.
That is this. The Adidas Telstar Duralast from 1970. It's going to be really interesting to test these out and see how much difference there is on the pitch.
This was the official football of the 1970 World Cup and has since gone on to be one of the most iconic footballs of all time. So with all the products together, we've got 3 tests to compare the old and the new: dribbling, accuracy and shooting versus a pro keeper. First up, the dribble test. You can see straight away my control and turn with the old stuff slowed me down, and I was just not turning as quick through the cones. And the new product allowed me to finish miles ahead, so new wins that test. How about accuracy? For this test, I'll take 10 shots into the top right and we'll compare the heat maps to see who wins. First up, the modern stuff.
Get in. Oh.
So I felt very comfortable using the modern boots and balls, and I was getting every shot pretty close to the target. And this was the final heat map. All the shots are clearly bunched together. Now let's see how I get on with the old stuff.
Ah. 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 Ah.
Now, despite getting a few close shots, it's clear that they were a lot worse. And this was my final heat map. Clearly a huge difference, which is honestly crazy to see. And I guess just shows the importance of our boots and ball. Now finally, before we check out Nike's early products, we have the shooting test versus Connor O'Keefe. I'll take 25 shots and let's see which set of products scores more.
Right, first up we've got the modern Adidas boots and ball. I'm expecting this to do a lot better than the old stuff. So, yes. Oh, get it. So, there we go. Yes. Oh.
So as expected, the modern stuff felt good and I was scoring some bangers.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, go on.
So my final score with the new products was 5 goals out of 25 shots, which I think is pretty good, but let's see how the old stuff gets on.
Oh my God. Wow.
Straight away you can see a clear drop in the quality of my shooting. The main problem was the boots. I had no real stability in them compared to the new stuff, and I found them very, very uncomfortable.
Oh. Yes. Toes are really starting to feel it now, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I bet.
Effort. There's definitely been a downgrade in shots here. Get in there. Oh, save. Yes. Oh, huge save. Oh. Yes. Oh, was that in? Yeah, we'll take one.
So 1 goal out of 25 for the old stuff.
And taking those 25 shots ended up actually breaking the boots.
And it just shows how much Adidas products have progressed over the years. But now let's take a look at Nike's early products. They came into football a bit later than Adidas, so there's a chance they could perform better.
First up, their most modern boots. They come in this nice box. And yeah, I've got to say, they look pretty sick. They've got a load of padding, they're extremely light and all round look really, really cool. But what were the first pair of boots they made? That would be these from 1971.
Now, Nike's first entry to the football boot scene was in 1970 when they released the Nikes. Now, these are incredibly rare these days and hard to find, but luckily Nike did release a remake, so I was able to get my hands on them, and they actually look really nice.
They've got a classic leather design. They're actually really soft leather. I mean, you can see the evolution quite evidently just from that. So it's going to be really interesting to put these through some tests and see how much difference there is.
Now, to compare the boots properly, first up we have the comfort test.
First up, the modern pair. I've got to say, these are so comfortable. 9 out of 10 for the modern boots. These are impressive. Right, now the old boots from the 1970s. These are actually very comfortable. I want to give these like a 7 out of 10 to say they're that old. They're a really comfy pair of boots.
So for their first attempt at football boots, I'm impressed with these Nikes so far. But what about the weight? These days, Nike are a brand built on speed and innovation. So light boots is something they're great at. But was it the same for their first pair?
First up, the most modern boot, 215 grams. That is very, very light. The old one, 320 grams. That is quite a bit heavier.
So a huge difference there, and surely that'll have an effect on the speed test. So a clear victory for the modern boots, and it's just so cool to see the progression and innovation become evident in these tests, and makes you realise how good the players were back in the day using all this old equipment. Now before we take a look at Nike's first football, which I think will not be one you're expecting, let's take a look at an old pair of their goalie gloves, which are actually very good.
Right, now we've got a pair of old and new Nike gloves. Once again, it's very hard to find Nike's first actual glove. There's not much reports on what the actual one is. So I just basically got a really old pair of their gloves and the newest pair. First up, let's take a look at their modern gloves. And I've got to say, these look very sick. They look cool, they're bright, they're loud. And the goalie gloves from back in the day, their 90s gloves, certainly weren't too bad either. Now we're moving on to the footballs. And before we do that, I want to clear something up. A lot of people think that this is Nike's first ever football, and this is Nike's first ever Premier League football. Their first ever football full stop is one that I've actually never heard of before. But their most modern ball is this, their 2025 Premier League ball, and this just looks very, very sick, obviously, so there's absolutely no complaints about their most modern products.
Now, once again, it's surprisingly hard to get an exact answer on Nike's first ever football, but from all my research, I believe it's this, the Nike 800 Geo, released in the 1990s. It's got a very simple design, the material does feel a bit plasticky, but this basic design is the start of an incredible journey for Nike in the football space, and I'm excited to see how it performs when I test it out.
This is how much the footballs have changed in about 30 years for Nike. From this to this, feels like there's a lot more padding, but until we test them, we won't know for sure.
First up, the dribble test. Once again, the old stuff was a lot slower on the control and turn, and going around the cones, the new stuff was just a lot better. So that was a win for the modern kit. Next up, the accuracy test. Now, the modern gear did great, getting 2 out of 10 shots in the basket, and this was the heat map.
Right, now let's see how their old stuff gets on. Oh! Oh!
Now, I've got to say, the old boots and ball weren't too bad at shooting at all. They felt far more comfortable than Adidas's early boots, but I still wasn't able to get any shots on target, and the heat map looked like this. And when compared side by side, they're actually not too much difference. Now finally, how will the Nike products perform when taking shots versus a pro keeper? First up, the newest gear, 25 shots. Let's see how many I can score.
Oh! Mate, that ball is so fast.
Now I've got to say, this ball was absolutely incredible. Genuinely one of my favourite footballs I've used. It absolutely flew.
Get in. Oh! Oh! Oh, yes! Get in. Oh, sorry. Oh, finish.
So overall on the shooting test, I got 4 goals out of 25 with Nike's newest products. Let's see how the oldest products get on.
Oh. So. Oh.
Now, whilst these weren't too bad, they just couldn't compete with the modern stuff.
Oh. Oh.
The ball definitely just didn't seem to move as fast, and the boots were heavier.
Get in. Oh, save. Oh, there is such a clear difference between the old and new products. It's actually crazy. Oh my days.
But I did manage to get 1 goal.
Yes. Oh no!
And I think this video just shows how far both these brands have come and the incredible innovation of football products over the years and how that has improved performance on the pitch.